On the Nevada test range, there's a hangar officially listed as empty. But every night, guards report shadows moving inside, and the alarms trigger even though the building is locked and sealed. That's what the outgoing team told us before they cleared the lot, quietly, like they were passing a curse. The NCO in charge, Sergeant Hartley, didn't bother with superstition. He pointed at the map, not the building. "Your post is Victor Line," he said, tapping a rectangle of ink that stood alone in a field of tan. "You keep the fence clean and the road clear. If the interior motion trips, you log it in radio ops. You do not try the door. Last guy who did that spent a week in medical for migraines and bleeding noses. You let that sink in. He's fine now. Mostly. We signed the relief forms anyway. Paper says the hangar. No number, just black hangar stamped in block letters. Was decommissioned in 1989. The padlock on the personnel door looked new. The windows had been painted over from the inside, sloppy brushstrokes baked to a dull shine by years of desert sun. Our team was 5. Me, Corporal Singh, squad lead for a shift, Specialist Rios, cameras, PF Singwin, radio, and Airman Ellison, range maintenance liaison who wasn't here if anyone asked. None of us liked the assignment. All of us pretended that made us professionals. The first night, the desert did what it always does, made noise out of silence. Wind stroked the chain link. Sagebrush hissed. Somewhere miles off, a generator coughed like an old smoker. The range is a museum of ideas that never made it to war. Radar dishes with their faces torn out, instrument towers with missing teeth, concrete pads that remember explosions nobody filmed. The hangar sat different. Not abandoned, excluded. Nothing grew close to it. Not weeds, not myth. Rios set the tripod and focused the thermal. Warm air shimmered in the lens like water. Nothing moved. The hangar's skin read a uniform cool gray, the way concrete and paint do after sundown. "Looks like a building being a building," he said. He didn't sound convinced. Nguyen did the first log entry in the patrol book. 9:35 p.m. Post assumed. All quiet. Singh took the long loop along the fence line and came back with his shoulders looser, like walking had scrubbed off some of the nerves. "Feels fine," he said, "but don't stare at it. Mix your eyes. I don't know. Skitter." At 1:57 a.m., the first alarm hit. Interior motion zone 2. A red banner crawled along the tablet Rios, kept clipped to his vest. The hangar had 4 interior motion zones marked on the plan, each tied to a different camera. We pulled the feeds. Snow. Not regular static. Black and white snow that pulsed like tide. Fat grains swimming against an invisible shore. "Switch to infrared," Singh said. Rios toggled. The snow thinned, then did something cameras shouldn't. It withdrew like it had noticed we were looking and made room. For a heartbeat, we saw the skeleton of the place. Open concrete floor. 2 gantry cranes locked mid-run along the rafters. A line of work lamps strung dark across the far wall. The image quivered, then vanished under static again. The alarm banner timed out and reset. Interior motion zone 3. "Not wind," Nguyen said. His voice was too level. We called ops. Ops said the same thing Hartley had. "Log it and hold." A civilian technician from the contractor side, name tag B, Keller, came out in a golf cart with 2 other techs and a metal case. They didn't flash badges and we didn't ask. They rolled right to the personnel door, set the case on the concrete, opened it, and produced a device the size of a loaf of bread with a telescoping wand. Keller held the wand over the door seam, watching numbers climb on a little green screen. "Radiation?" Singh asked. "Field flux," Keller said, as if that answered anything. "Think of it like old charge bleeding through paint. Or not." He stared at the numbers, almost affectionate. "We'll reshield." His partner, a silent guy with soft-soled boots, ran a putty knife along the door jamb, then smeared something metallic into the gap. The last tech peeled fresh copper mesh and pressed it over the small louvered vents along the foundation. They worked fast, third shift quiet, like men setting up folding chairs for a funeral no one was supposed to attend. "Can you open it?" Nguyen asked, just to clear the alarm. Keller smiled without humor. "Son, if it wanted open, you'd know it. Keep your distance, don't answer if it knocks, and if you get a nosebleed, blink slow and look away." "Look away from what?" "You'll know." They left. The copper gleamed like new pennies along the base of the wall. It looked wrong against the black. At 2:06 a.m., Zone 1 went hot. Then Zone 2. Then all 4 zones lit at once. Red banners stacking until the tablet chirped continuous. The thermal feed behind the banners crawled with motion. Not heat exactly, but a distortion that bent straight lines. The gantry cranes bulged and snapped back like reflections in a funhouse mirror. The work lamps along the wall seemed to swing on cables that didn't move. We were 20 yards from the personnel door when Singh's hand shot out. "Stop!" A shadow lay across the threshold. It wasn't ours. It didn't match the angle of the yard light. It didn't match anything. It moved slow, from left to right, then back again like somebody pacing inside where nobody could pace. Rio swallowed. Padlock's fogging. He was right. The steel body of the lock had beaded condensation in the cool night. Sweat ran down its face until it dripped. You don't see that in the desert unless you've hauled something from a freezer to the sun. "Back it up," Singh said. We did. 25 yards. 30. The alarms kept singing. The shadow under the door stopped and faced us. I know how stupid that sounds. A shadow doesn't face. It either is or it isn't. But it faced. I blinked. The pressure behind my eyes throbbed once in time with the tablet's chirp. A phantom metallic taste touched the back of my tongue, like a coin you can't spit out. "Ops, this is Victor Line." And Gwen said into the mic, "We've got full interior trip, visual anomalies at the personnel door, possible condensation on the lock. Request guidance. Ops, hold position. Do not approach the structure." We held. The alarm cycled. At 2:21 a.m., everything went quiet. Feeds, sensors, the odd ringing in the bones you only notice once it stops. The padlock dried as we watched. By 2:30 a.m., the hangar was a frozen photograph of itself again. We did the rest of the shift on autopilot, like men who'd seen a car drift on ice and felt the tires catch again. At dawn, we logged the night's events with the kind of calm handwriting you use on post, when you hope your words won't make you sound like an idiot. Keller came back around 9 a.m. with more copper mesh and a roll of black adhesive that smelled like tar and burnt sugar. He didn't ask what we'd seen. We didn't volunteer. "Reshielding," Singh asked. "Something like that," Keller said. "Think of it as politeness between neighbors." He pressed the mesh along the door seam without looking at us. Doors go both ways. The second night, the alarms waited until 2:03 a.m. This time, the tablet threw a second banner. Badge reader. Access denied. Midnight. The timestamp read zeros across, like the request had been made at the beginning of time. Rios zoomed the external cam on the personnel door. Nothing there. No person. No animal. Just the red eye of the reader blinking its steady heartbeat. The padlock fogged again. The shadow paced. Something thumped inside, deep and hollow, like a crane hook tapping a girder. "Who's trying a badge?" Gwen asked. "Nobody," Singh said. But he was staring at the zeros, and I was staring at the tiny flakes of paint drifting from the door as if it had exhaled. We backed off farther this time, to the fence line. The air felt charged, hairs lifting under the uniform. I caught myself counting my own blinks, and when I stopped, the metallic taste faded. The alarm stacked. The cranes bulged and snapped true. The reader blinked a little faster, then settled. At 2:28 a.m., the motion cleared. At 2:31 a.m., the tablet chimed one last event. Interior audio, channel open. There's no open mic in a sealed hangar. There shouldn't be a channel. But through the tablet's tiny speaker came 30 seconds of room tone, a vast, cold emptiness, and then, soft as cloth on metal, footsteps. Not in a hurry, not lost, patrolling. Singh closed the cover on the tablet like it had started to bleed. "Log it," he said. "We keep our distance." We did. But that night, back at the hooch, I lay on the bunk and stared at the plywood above my face and realized I was measuring my breaths, slow and even, to match a pace that wasn't mine. On the third night, the badge reader didn't blink zeros. It displayed a name none of us recognized. A name that, when Gwen tried to say it out loud, made his nose start to bleed. And that was the first time I understood the hangar wasn't trying to get into us. It was trying to let something out. The third night started quiet enough to make you doubt your own notes. Temperature dropped fast after 9:10 p.m. The yard light threw a hard cone across the tarmac. insects orbiting like debris. We logged on at 9:30 p.m. Post assumed. Fence line intact, cameras green. Singh split the loop. Rios and I along the south run to check the culvert, and Gwyn and Ellison north to the old instrument tower. At 11:42 p.m., we were back on the truck tailgate, drinking burnt coffee from a thermos that had seen a war of its own. Rios kept flipping the tablet case open like a man checking a wound. "You ever get the feeling the building is waiting for a time that isn't on our clocks?" he said. "Every night," I said. "Log the feeling." He smirked, then didn't. The badge reader pinged first at 1:59 a.m. Just a heartbeat, a tiny chirp from the tablet we almost ignored. The event banner popped up and froze us. Badge reader. Access denied. Name. Redacted. No ID number. No swipe time. Just a name the tablet tried to render and couldn't. Letters stuttering. Breaking into symbols, then reforming into something you could nearly pronounce if your mouth didn't mind bleeding for it. Gwyn returned from the tower right as it flashed. He leaned over Rio's shoulder, squinted, and sounded out the first two syllables. On the third, blood sprang from his left nostril in a clean, surprised sheet. He jerked back, pinching the bridge of his nose, eyes watering. "Copy the event," Singh said, voice flat, and nobody else tries to say it. We pulled the external cam on the door. The lens showed night and paint and the reader's red eye. No person in frame. No animal. The padlock didn't fog. For 30 seconds, nothing else moved. And then the inside of the reader changed. Its red LED pulsed brighter, like an IR beacon turned toward us, not away. "Back it up," Singh said. We stepped to the 30-yard mark. My skin prickled like I'd walked past a CRT monitor in a dark room. The old static hiss you feel an inch off glass. At 2:03 a.m., the interior motion alarms cascaded. Zone 1 through Zone 4, a clean sweep. Rios flipped thermal, and we watched the gantry cranes warp. This time the distortion didn't snap back. It held, flexed again, then settled in a new wrong, like the metal had been asked to remember a shape it hadn't worn in decades. The tablet dinged a fresh banner. Interior audio, channel open, 029. The timer counted up. For 29 seconds we listened to a big, cold room do nothing. On the 30th, the footsteps returned, measured, rubber on concrete. They came close to whichever mic wasn't supposed to exist and stopped. Then a key scraped metal, not at the personnel door, deeper. A padlock somewhere we couldn't see turned with a long, stubborn complaint, like two corroded parts insisting they never knew each other. "Where the hell is that?" Ellison whispered. Rios flicked through the internal cams. "Static. Snow." A brief, impossible slice. A corridor along the east wall. Cable trays. Conduit. A maintenance door with yellow stenciling half peeled. The image stuttered and died. "Ops. Victor line." Gwyn said into the handset, voice pinched from the nosebleed. "We have interior audio and probable internal access. Request guidance." Ops came back at 2:05 a.m., clipped and awake. "Hold external. Tech team en route." Singh nodded, although they couldn't see him. "Roger. We're holding. We did what you do when you can't do anything. Check the small things." I walked the fence to the southwest corner and ran my palm along chain link that hummed like a quiet instrument. When I reached the corner post, the hair on my forearm stood up under the sleeve. I looked down. A moth clung to the steel, wings beating at nothing. Another moth, then a third. In the yard light, they looked like ash flakes trying to go home. "Boss," I called. "Fence is hot." Rios brought the multimeter from the toolbox, clipped the leads. "We're not drawing power," he said, frowning. "The air is." "Add it to the log," Singh said. The golf cart's headlamps bobbed into view at 2:12 a.m. Keller and his two shadows rolled up with their metal case and that loaves of bread instrument. Faces tired, movements precise. Keller's partner went straight to the foundation vents and pressed a palm to the copper mesh like a man checking a sick child's forehead. "Flux?" Singh asked. Keller watched numbers on his green screen jump and settle like skittish animals. "Off the chart for this hour," he said. "We'll do a perimeter ring." He popped the case, took out 4 pucks the size of hockey discs, and handed them off. The techs trotted to the corners of the hangar and set each puck down like they knew exactly where each belonged. Keller stayed at the door, wand hovering near the seam. "Those little coasters supposed to help?" Rios asked. They give it something easier to chew than your heads, Keller said without looking up. At 2:18 a.m. our tablet chimed again. Badge reader. Access denied. Name. Redacted. Retry 1/3. The LED on the reader flared and held. A soft clunk sounded inside the door skin, the way a solenoid talks when it wants to do its job but doesn't have permission. Gwyn wiped his upper lip and kept his eyes on the ground. Whatever it is, he said, it knows procedures. Keller's wand ticked. He grimaced. Or it remembers them. Can you open it? Singh asked, gesturing to the door. The question felt both stupid and necessary. Keller finally looked at us. He was the sort of tired that makes a man gentle. I can, he said. I shouldn't. Because Op says no. Because the last time we did, the inside tried to be bigger than the outside for about 14 seconds. He moved the wand an inch. The numbers jumped. We lost the tool cart into a corner that wasn't there before. He paused. We didn't get it back. At 2:20 a.m. the interior audio channel opened on its own again. 012. 013. The footsteps returned, closer, then walked past the mic with a Doppler hush and kept going toward the east wall. The sound faded. A metallic thud rolled through the hangar skin and into our ribs. A door closing somewhere private. Keller's partner, the quiet one with soft-soled boots, touched the copper mesh at the far vent and snatched his hand back like he'd burned it. He held his palm up. A perfect grid had imprinted in pink across his skin. Field reversed, Keller said. It's pushing now. The badge reader chimed. Retry 2/3. The name briefly stabilized. I looked away as soon as I felt my sinuses sting. Singh turned the tablet so it faced the ground. Enough, he said, and he wasn't talking to any of us. We held the line until 2:24 a.m. when Ops came back with a new voice. Female, crisp. Tech lead. This is range control. Confirm you're in position. Keller keyed his handheld. In position. Do not open the facility. Establish a Faraday perimeter and await sunrise. Copy. Copy, Keller said, and his shoulders lowered half an inch like a man who'd hoped for a different call and got the one he expected. They started unspooling a belt of copper braid from the case, circling the hangar with a bright ribbon that glowed dull under the yard light. Every 8 feet, they clamped it to a ground stake and hammered the steel home. It looked like they were giving a present to a thing that didn't have birthdays. At 2:31 a.m., the tablet threw one more event. Interior motion. Mezzanine walkway north. Rio switched to the mezzanine cam and got 5 frames of sense. Railings, a catwalk, the square ghost of a long-removed office. On the 6th frame, something occluded the lens. Not a body, not heat, just less. And the feed sank back into snow. Log it, Singh said. We're riding this out. We did. The alarms eased at 2:37 a.m., as if someone inside had finished their route and clocked out. The badge reader dimmed to its base heartbeat. The copper braid hummed like a far thunder the rest of the night. At dawn, Hartley met us with a clipboard and a look that said he'd guessed half of it. He skimmed our notes, grunted at the times, looked up when he hit the line about the name. Don't try to say it, he said, like he was telling us not to stare at the sun. We didn't, Singh said. Gwyn tried. The building corrected him. Hartley scribbled, then lowered the clipboard. You ever wonder why they don't just brick this place up and call it day? Every hour, Rio said. Hartley nodded toward the hangar. Because the last time they bricked one up, the brickwork came back on the outside of a different building. Miles away, he tucked the pencil behind his ear. Some doors don't close. They move. We sacked out for the afternoon with blackout shades taped to the hooch windows. I woke at 6:18 p.m. to a dream I could still feel in my teeth. Metal under my tongue. The taste of pennies, a red LED pulsing behind my eyelids. In the dream, the name on the badge reader finally printed clean. Not in letters. In steps. Heel to toe, moving toward the door in a cadence I recognized now as intimately as my own breath. At 9 p.m., we kid up again. Singh checked our eyes like a medic checks pupils after concussion. Gwyn stuffed tampons into his cargo pocket against the next nosebleed and joked weakly that at least the supply sergeant would have a story. At 9:47 p.m., Ops keyed us before the shift even settled. Victor Line, range control. Be advised, increased activity recorded last 48 hours. Maintain distance. Do not address the facility directly. Address. Rio said, After the mic clicked dead. Like it's a person. Like it's a phone, Singh said. Let's not pick up. At 1:58 a.m., the badge reader lit on its own. No swipe, no event, just the LED brightening, until the red became almost white. The padlock fogged, then iced, a frost halo spiderwebbing the shackle in the desert air. The tablet chimed, and the name rendered halfway, held, like the world was holding its breath with it. The interior audio channel opened. We heard breathing, not labored, not lost, patrolling. And for the first time, it didn't sound like it was inside the hangar. It sounded like it was between the hangar's walls and the night we were standing in, as if the building had grown a corridor you couldn't see unless it wanted you to walk it. Singh didn't give us time to think about that. Back to the 50-yard line, he said. Eyes down. Log the time. 2 a.m. Rios wrote it steady as scripture. The LED held. The frost thickened. Somewhere a far door clicked politely. And the hangar, our empty, sealed, decommissioned hangar, took a breath I could feel in the bones of the fence. The third night was the first time I felt like the hangar wasn't just reacting. It was waiting. We came on post at 9:15 p.m., the desert already hard with cold. The air smelled metallic, like the way your hands do after handling old pennies. Singh logged us in, calm as always, but I noticed how his pen trembled against the paper. Rios muttered about the copper braid Keller's team had laid around the base of the hangar, saying it hummed louder now, almost like it was vibrating with the same rhythm as the badge reader. The yard lights snapped on at 9:45 p.m., flooding the tarmac in harsh cones. Beyond that circle of light, everything was black, the kind of black that feels like it's looking back at you. We settled into our routine. Fence line checks, thermal sweeps, comms checks. At 11:30 p.m., Nguyen came back from his circuit pail, sweat shining on his forehead, even though the air had dropped to near freezing. There's writing, he said, voice hushed. Where? Singh asked. Nguyen pointed toward the southern edge of the hangar. We followed him, boots crunching on gravel, breath steaming white. There, just beyond the sweep of the yard light, words had been scratched into the dust on the concrete apron. Long, deliberate strokes, letters tall as my thigh. Rios leaned down, careful not to touch. That's English, he whispered. It was crude, uneven, but unmistakable. The message read, "Let me out." Singh stared for a long moment, jaw tight. "Log it," he said finally. Nobody says it out loud again. At 12:02 a.m., the first alarm went. Interior motion zone 3. The tablet chirped, and a new banner appeared under it. Interior audio, channel open, 009. We huddled around Rios as the tiny speaker filled with the sound of breathing. Not fast, not panicked, steady, like someone walking patrol inside the hangar. The badge reader lit at 12:05 a.m. This time, it didn't flash gibberish. It displayed a name. Capt. Hollis. None of us knew the name. Rios pulled the old personnel rosters from the tablet's archive, scrolling fast. There was Captain Daniel Hollis, Range Safety Officer, 1983 to 1987. Dead? I asked. Transferred out in 87, Rios said. No follow-up. The reader blinked again. Access denied. Then the LED began to strobe, faster and faster, until it was almost white. Nguyen swore under his breath, holding his nose like he expected another bleed. It's asking for him. For Hollis. At 12:10 a.m., the padlock on the personnel door fogged. Then it clicked. We all heard it. The shackle popping free, metal shifting. But when Singh raised his light, the lock still hung there, untouched. It took me a second to realize what I was looking at. There were two shadows of the padlock. One exactly where it should be, dark and sharp in the yard light. The other faint, offset by half an inch, shivering like a reflection in water. Back up, Singh ordered. Now. We stepped to the 30-yard mark, rifles raised. The alarm stacked. Zone 1, Zone 2, Zone 4, until the whole hangar was lit red on the tablet. Inside, the cranes warped, the catwalks bent. For a heartbeat, I thought I saw a silhouette, a figure standing on the mezzanine, hands clasped behind its back like an officer reviewing troops. At 12:18 a.m., ops crackled over the handset. Victor line, range control. Confirm multiple interior alarms. Confirmed, Singh said. Padlock anomaly. Possible visual on mezzanine. Ops paused longer than usual. Then, do not engage. Repeat, do not engage. Tech team rolling. Keller arrived at 12:27 a.m., golf cart whining as it climbed the service road. He looked older in the floodlights, face hollow, eyes ringed like he hadn't slept in weeks. His techs didn't waste time. They went straight to the vents, pressing hands to the copper mesh. One cursed softly, holding up his palm. His skin showed a faint handprint pressed into it, as if someone had touched him from the other side. Keller crouched by the badge reader, instrument wand humming in his hand. Numbers jittered and froze. It's not just remembering, he muttered. It's rehearsing. What's it rehearsing? Singh asked. Exit procedures. At 12:33 a.m., the interior audio channel opened again. This time, it wasn't footsteps. It was a voice. Male. Calm. Almost conversational. Range control. This is Captain Hollis. I'm locked inside. Request release. My stomach dropped. The voice was steady, professional, the kind you'd follow into combat. Singh keyed his mic, but didn't transmit. His hand hovered there, knuckles white. The badge reader blinked. Retry 1/3. The voice came again, firmer. Range control. Copy. I repeat, this is Captain Hollis. I am locked inside Hangar 27. Request release. 27. Rios whispered. This is Hangar 14. Keller's wand screeched static. Don't answer it, he said, eyes hard. Whatever it is, it doesn't need you to. It just needs the ritual. At 12:39 a.m., the padlock's shadow peeled away from the real one. It dropped silently to the ground and lay there like a discarded skin. The real lock still hung on the shackle, untouched. Time to go, Singh said. Everyone back to the 50-yard line. We retreated, step by step, eyes locked on the door. The shadow of the lock began to twitch, then crawl, dragging itself across the concrete toward the copper braid Keller's team had laid. When it touched the strip, sparks snapped, bright blue. The smell of ozone hit my nose. The shadow recoiled, but only for a moment. Then it pressed harder, like a hand testing a window. The braid glowed, metal humming like a struck tuning fork. At 12:45 a.m., the voice inside the audio channel changed. It wasn't Hollis anymore. It was a chorus. Dozens of voices layered, speaking the same words in unison. Let US out. Let US out. Nguyen staggered back, clutching his ears. Blood trickled from his nose again. I felt pressure behind my eyes. A headache blooming sharp and hot. Keller's tech scrambled, unspooling more copper, reinforcing the circle. Singh gritted his teeth and barked. Hold the line. At 12:52 a.m., the voices cut off. The padlock's shadow vanished. The alarms went dark. Silence. We stood there, rifles raised, ears ringing. The only sound was our own breath, ragged in the cold. Keller finally spoke, voice low. It's learning. Every night it remembers a little more. He looked at Singh, then at all of us. When it finishes remembering, it won't need a badge. It'll walk out on its own. We logged the event at 1 a.m. Official wording. Multiple interior alarms. Audio anomaly. No breach observed. Unofficially, I knew the truth. The black hangar wasn't just haunted. It was occupied, and whoever, or whatever, was inside wanted us to open the door. The night after the Hollis transmission, Range Control authorized Keller to run what he called a containment protocol. He didn't smile when he said it. He just asked for more copper, more ground stakes, and a cart battery he promised to sign back in. We came on post at 9:20 p.m. Air felt drier than paper. The braid they'd laid around the hangar hummed faintly, as if it had learned to purr. Singh ran the checklist. Fence line, gates, tower lights, then gathered us on the tailgate. Tonight we don't improvise, he said. We let Keller lead, and we hold perimeter. If the tablet shows a name, nobody tries to pronounce it. If the lock fogs, we fall to 50 yards. If anybody gets a nosebleed, you look at your boots and breathe slow. Rios raised a hand. And if it talks like Hollis again? Log it, Singh said, and let it talk to itself. Keller arrived at 11:58 p.m. with the same two techs and a second case I hadn't seen before. Long, rugged, stencil microwave. Do not drop. He parked the cart well shy of the copper ring, killed the lights, and started issuing orders like a field expediter at a disaster site. We're gonna double hoop it, he said. Inner braid hugs the wall. Outer braid at a 10-yard radius. We'll bond both to a temporary earth and tie them together at quarter points. Think of it as giving the building a shorter path than us. Shorter path for what? Rios asked. For whatever it's trying to push or pull, Keller said. Not unkind. If we're lucky, it'll prefer the copper. We helped where we could, pounding ground rods, unspooling bright coils, clamping bonds. The tech with soft-sole boots laid small ferrite blocks on the braid every few feet, like talismans. The other tech lugged the microwave case to the south corner, cracked it open, and assembled something that looked halfway between a radar gun and a shop fan. What's that do? Ellison asked. Jams the behavior we don't like, Keller said. Or annoys it. We'll see. At 12:09 a.m., while we were still setting the outer ring, the tablet chimed. Interior motion. Zone 2. The red banner crawled, then stacked. Zone 1. Zone 3. Zone 4. The badge reader lit at 12:10 a.m. LED pulsing brighter with each alarm. Hold your positions, Singh called. Eyes downrange. The padlock fogged at 12:12 a.m. Frost spidered from the shackle and bled into the hasp, a delicate lace that shouldn't have survived desert air. The copper braid nearest the door sparked once, blue and angry, then settled into a steady hum. Keller checked the wand at the jam. Numbers jittered. Field rising, he said. Let's finish the outer. We moved faster. The outer hoop closed at 12:16 a.m. Clamps tight, cables bonded. Keller nodded to the south tech, who powered the jammer. It whirred up until the air felt thick, like a thunderstorm thinking about itself. The badge reader's LED dimmed a fraction. The frost halted. Good, Keller said. If we... The tablet cut him off. Interior audio. Channel open 030. The timer marched. The footsteps came. Calm. Regular. The audio gain rode up by itself, and we heard something else beneath the steps. A light metallic ticking, slow and deliberate, like a relay flipping on a cadence. Mezzanine relay, Rios guessed. Keller shook his head. That's not inside. Where then? Singh asked. Between, Keller said. At 12:19 a.m., a new banner stacked under the audio. Badge reader. Access denied. Retry 1/3. The LED brightened toward white. The padlock shadow separated again and fell like dead weight, skittering toward the braid. Sparks leapt where shadow met copper. The braid sang a single pure note. Nguyen pinched his nose, waiting for blood that didn't come. His eyes watered anyway. Feels like pressure in a plane, he said. Like my head's trying to change elevation. Log it, Singh said. Time 12:20 a.m. Keller adjusted the jammer's angle, twisted a knob, and the note the braid sang dropped a tone. The LED faltered. The tablet chimed. Interior motion. Mezzanine walkway. North, followed by south, like something walking a loop. What happens if your rings fail? I asked. They won't, Keller said. And then, because he wasn't Hartley and didn't deal in fables, added. If they do, we retreat to the fence and wait for sunrise. The radio on Nguyen's vest crackled. Victor line. Range control. Status. Multiple interior trips. Reader activity. Running containment, Singh said. Outer hoop is live. Recommend. Maintain no entry. Approved. Range control said. Be advised. Airborne sensor sweep at 12:30 a.m. Keep clear of the tarmac. We stepped back to the 50-yard line anyway, leaving the copper to do its work. The yard lights seemed farther away than they were. The hangar's paint drank illumination, turning blacker than black, a hole drawn in with the fattest marker a man could buy. At 12:27 a.m., the audio channel flicked from footsteps to voice. Not Hollis this time. A woman, cool and clipped. Range control. Lock 2 engaged. Authorize release. Rios' eyes jumped to me. I shook my head. We said nothing. Keller squinted at the jam display like he could will the numbers into a truth that wouldn't make his stomach drop. The badge reader flashed a new banner. Key override. Insert. And displayed a 6-digit code. 000000. Cute. Ellison muttered. The code of the beast. Keller's jaw clenched. That's not for us, he said. That's for itself. He tapped the wand. Field shift. It's cheating the reader from the inside. Can it do that? Rios asked. Tonight it can, Keller said. The jammer coughed a note lower. The copper trembled under its clamps. My molars ached like a weather change. And then a sound came that we hadn't heard before. Not footsteps, not locks, not voices. Knocking. 3 soft raps from the north wall. Then 3 more from the east. Then 3 from the door itself. As polite as a guest who won't try the knob without invitation. "Back it up," Singh said, steady even as he moved. Time 12:29 a.m. The golf cart's radio popped. Airborne sweep commencing 12:30 a.m. Range control said, "All units hold position." We did. I tilted my head without meaning to, listening for rotors or a jet. Nothing overhead. But the air changed, got lined, like you could feel scanning lines pass through you. The badge reader died to a heartbeat. The padlocks frost-beaded and fell. The copper hoop brightened to shade and then calmed. Keller exhaled. "Sweep helps," he said. "Scrambles whatever geometry it's trying." "Then why didn't we lead with that?" Singh asked. "Because a sweep doesn't keep it inside," Keller said. "It just makes the choice harder." He wasn't wrong. At 12:33 a.m., the audio channel reopened with a click of the kind every facility shares. Mag lock disengaging. We all stared at the personnel door. The padlock didn't move. The handle didn't turn, but the shadow of the handle did. It dropped, rotated, and the door's shadow, not the door, swung inward against nothing. Cold washed across the concrete in a band you could have painted. "Eyes up," Singh warned, but quietly, like a man in church. The interior cams, useless snow for hours, gave us 7 clean frames in a row. An aisle, catwalk rail, gantries that had learned to settle wrong. On frame 8, a figure at the far end, tall, posture neat, hands behind its back. No heat, no face, just a darker dark, shaped like a man in coveralls. Rio's finger hovered over the zoom. Keller's hand shot out and stopped him without looking. "Don't magnify it," he said. "If it sees itself in the feed, sometimes it learns faster." The figure's head turned, not toward our camera, the wrong way, toward a feed that didn't exist. Then the frames died. Snow swallowed a hole. At 12:37 a.m., range control came back. "Tech lead, report." Keller keyed up. "Containment holding." Attempted shadow ingress at the door. Airborne sweep disrupted activity. He hesitated, then said the thing I don't think he planned to say. "Recommend a freeze." "Define," range control said. "Stop all attempts to teach it what out looks like," Keller replied. "No more reader polls. No more sweeps. No one says door, open, release, or out on net inside a mile of this pad." A long silence. Then, copy containment. Freeze under review. The tablet chimed one last time at 12:40 a.m. Interior audio. Channel open. 008. 8 seconds of empty room. And at the end of it, farther than microphones can hear and closer than bone can ignore, a whisper that made my teeth itch. Almost. The alarms bled off by 12:44 a.m. The LED returned to its heartbeat. The frost sublimated from the lock like a bad idea. Keller powered down the jammer, left the hoops humming, and looked 10 years older. "Something changed tonight," he said to Singh. "You felt it." "We all did," Singh said. Keller nodded toward the desert beyond the fence, the part of the range that never shows up on any map. "Listen, we did. Past the chain link, past the sage, past the blank miles, the night, answer the hangar. 3 soft knocks from out where there was nothing to knock on. East, then north, then behind us from the dark around the instrument tower. Outside," Rio said softly. "There's outside now." Keller's mouth went thin. "It's not leaving," he said. "It's growing." We logged out at 5:58 a.m., sun clawing at the ridgeline. Hartley read our notes without breathing, eyes stalling on 12:33 a.m. like a needle on a scratched record. He didn't tell us good job. He didn't tell us to get sleep. He just said, "Tonight you won't be alone on Victor Line." "Who's with us?" Singh asked. Hartley folded the clipboard shut. "The ones who write freezes," he said, "and the ones who break them." I slept a shallow hour and dreamed of doors that learn each other's names. When I woke at 6:52 p.m., there was copper smell in my mouth and a new bruise under my tongue I didn't remember biting for. At 9 p.m., we kid up. 2 additional vehicles waited by the gate. 1 beige SUV with no plates, 1 flatbed with a crate bolted down, and USAF property stenciled, so dark it looked like the letters had been cut out. A woman in a flight suit with no patches climbed out of the SUV, eyes the color of storm glass. "I'm Price," she said. "I'm here to run the freeze." "And the crate?" Singh asked. She didn't look back at it. "Insurance." "What kind?" "The kind you hope we don't open." At 9:47 p.m., the yard light snapped on. The copper hoops hummed. The tablet was quiet in Rio's hands. Too quiet. As if it were waiting to be asked a question it had finally learned to enjoy. Price checked her watch. "We begin to freeze at 11:59 p.m., she said. No one says door, open, release, or out. No one speaks to the building directly. If it speaks first, you do not answer. And if it knocks?" I asked. She met my eyes. "Then you pretend you never learned how to knock back." Somewhere far out beyond the fence, 3 soft raps answered from the dark. We didn't move. We didn't speak. We just watched the hangar and understood that tomorrow's problem had arrived tonight. And somewhere in all that silence, the badge reader woke up early. It printed 2 names. The 5th night didn't feel like another shift. It felt like a verdict. We signed on a Victor line at 9:12 p.m. The air was dead calm, the desert quiet enough that the hum of the copper hoops carried across the tarmac like wires strung in the sky. The badge reader's LED pulsed steady, too steady, like a heartbeat we'd started counting in our own chests. Price, the woman in the unmarked flight suit, gathered us by the truck tailgate. Her SUV sat with its engine off, windows black, while the flatbed idled near the fence, the massive crate bolted down tight under canvas. "The freeze goes active at 11:59 p.m., she said. "Until then, log everything, but don't speak to it, don't describe it out loud, and don't repeat what it says. Words are permissions. Understand?" We nodded. Singh kept his arms folded, jaw clenched, eyes fixed on the hangar like it might move if he blinked. At 10:46 p.m., the tablet chimed, an anomaly without alarms. Interior audio, channel open, 005. Rios put on speaker. For 5 seconds, nothing but deep silence. Then 3 soft raps, perfectly spaced. Not from inside, from behind us, where the flatbed sat with its crate. We spun, rifles raised. The canvas didn't move. The metal straps held. But the knock had been real, hollow, resonant, like something inside had politely asked to be remembered. "Log it," Price said calmly. "And don't turn your backs on that crate again." By 11:30 p.m., the desert had gone colder than usual, like heat had been pulled out and stored somewhere else. Nguyen rubbed his arms, eyes glassy. "It's watching harder tonight," he muttered. Singh cut him a look. "Don't give it lines, private." At 11:59 p.m., the freeze began. Price knelt by the personnel door with a case of equipment that looked like a cross between a radio and a prayer book. Copper plates, spools of wire, a compact signal jammer humming low. She pressed a plate against the jam, clipped it in, then tapped her headset. "Control, this is Freeze 1. Seal is active." The badge reader blinked twice, then froze mid-beat. The LED stayed dim red, unchanging. For the first time in days, the padlock didn't fog. "Good," Price said. "It'll test us." At 12:08 a.m., it did. The tablet lit with a banner. Interior audio, channel open, 015. A voice, male, steady. "Range control, this is Captain Hollis. I am requesting release." "Copy." No one spoke. Rios gripped the tablet, so tight his knuckles whitened. The voice came again, louder. "This is Captain Hollis. Range safety. I am locked in Hangar 27. Respond." Ellison whispered. "That hangar doesn't exist anymore." Price cut him off with a glare. "Shut it down." The timer hit 15 seconds and cut. Silence. At 12:11 a.m., the badge reader flared bright white, then dimmed instantly. The tablet chimed. "Badge reader. Access denied. Retry 1/3. The name it tried to print blurred into symbols, then steadied into one word. Hollis. Nguyen groaned softly, clutching his nose, a thread of blood running down. "It's baiting," Price said. "Don't say it." At 12:15 a.m., the hangar answered the freeze in a new way. The shadow of the personnel door swung open. Not the door itself. Its shadow peeled away, swung wide on the tarmac, and stayed that way. The black rectangle gaped on the ground, a flat, impossible corridor stretching into nothing. Cold poured from it, fogging our boots. The copper braid sparked. the hum rising into a high, angry whine. Price's text scrambled, dropping ferrite blocks onto the braid, reinforcing the circle. The door's shadow flexed against it, pressing like a hand against the skin that might break. At 12:20 a.m., the radio on Singh's vest crackled. Range controls channel, but the voice wasn't theirs. Victor line, acknowledge. This is range control. Authorize release. The cadence was wrong. Too measured. Too rehearsed. Singh keyed his mic anyway. Negative. Freeze in effect. A pause. Then the same voice, mocking his tone. Negative. Freeze in effect. The badge reader flashed. Retry 2/3. That's when the crate on the flatbed shook. Once. Hard. The straps groaned. The canvas jumped. 3 soft raps echoed from inside, louder than before. Ellison backed away. What the hell did you bring here? Price didn't look at him. Insurance. Insurance against what? Rios asked. Against a door that refuses to forget where it leads, she said. At 12:26 a.m., the tablet chimed again. Interior motion. Mezzanine walkway north. The feed flickered on for 4 frames. The same silhouette stood there, hands clasped behind its back. This time, though, it faced the camera. For the first time, we saw its eyes. Not glowing. Not human. Just 2 holes, deep enough that the pixels bent into them. Nguyen gagged, turned, and vomited into the dirt. The feed died. The badge reader blinked. Retry 3/3. The LED flared so bright the padlock glowed cherry red, ice steaming off it in curls. Price's voice cut sharp. Containment breach imminent. Prep the crate. Her text ran to the flatbed, pulling straps, peeling canvas. Underneath was a metal box, thick, riveted, stenciled with radiation warnings and hazard symbols layered like stickers on a traveling trunk. One sideboard door with a wheel lock. You brought another box to fight this box. Rios muttered. Price ignored him. When the badge reader hits green, you open this, she told her team. On my mark. At 12:29 a.m., the badge reader blinked once, green. The padlock fell from the personnel door and hit the ground with a sound like a bell rung underwater. The shadow door yawned wider. Inside it, something moved, a figure tall, posture perfect, stepping forward. Mark, Price shouted. Her tech spun the wheel lock and yanked open the crate. A wave of pressure punched the air, rattling our teeth. From inside came not light, but sound. A deep thrumming that made the hangar itself shudder. The badge reader's LED flickered, the green stuttering, then dying back to red. The shadow door snapped shut. The figure vanished. The personnel door stood untouched, lockless, but closed. The tablet went black. At 12:32 a.m., silence fell. No alarms, no voices, no knocks. We stood in the yard, hearts pounding, ears ringing, waiting for the next test. It never came. Price shut the crate, spun the lock, and barked at her text to strap it down. Containment re-established, she said into her headset. Then she looked at us, eyes cold. You didn't see this. You didn't hear this. You'll log standard alarms and interference. Nothing more. What's in that crate? I asked before I could stop myself. She held my gaze. Another door. One that answers. We logged out at 6 a.m., the rising sun painting the desert red. Hartley took our reports without comment. Price and her team drove away, crate chained down, leaving nothing but the humming copper hoops around a building that still looked empty. That night, in my bunk, I dreamed of footsteps pacing behind my eyelids. When I woke at 3:14 a.m., my radio, switched off, clicked once, and a voice I knew too well whispered, calm and patient. Retry 1/3.